Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of At the Pump. This is Patrick sitting here with Brian, and we're here to bring you kind of a 4th of July special to honor the upcoming holiday. What's
Correct.
going on, Brian?
Not much. We're going to get into some good old American muscle cars today.
Hold on, let me get fancy real quick. We're going to do a little bit of red, white, and blue.
Nice.
There you go.
So first off, we're probably going to cover like the classic American muscle car, which in my mind is a V8 rear-wheel drive manual two-door.
No, of course. I don't think it's
So-
just in your mind. I think that's just what
That's
a muscle
what it
car
is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They've kind of veered off from that into the present day. We'll
You're
get
right.
into that.
You're
But
right. Dodge Charger owners.
in the classic, I mean, Chevy SS, G8, like we could go on it. But anyway, in the classic like hot rod era, when people were first tinkering with cars, modding them out, making them faster, adding their little personal touch to it.
Right.
It was the muscle car era of the late 60s, early 70s that we remember, at least.
And that was like the era that our parents were in, right? And,
Yep.
you know, hearing them about their stories of the car community back then. But you're absolutely right. Like 60s, early 70s, like that was the muscle car era that, you know, I think of Gone in 60 Seconds. I think
Exactly.
of all of these kind of, not only movies, but just the cars from that era, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the muscle car era.
Yep.
And we can speak on that because locally here is the Barrett-Jackson Car Auction. So for those that don't know, Barrett-Jackson is the world's largest automotive auction, and it's not at the typical auction that you think of, right? I mean, it is huge, and we have the largest one here in Scottsdale, like February, end of January, February,
Yeah.
every
February.
year. So this whole state of Arizona just turns into this old muscle car kind of like car show for a week.
Yeah, I would say the Barrett-Jackson auction kind of maybe not focuses, but at least it attracts and brings a high quality product from restoration car from that period,
Yeah.
as well as a high end buyer. Like these cars are going for $1 million sometimes or more that are, perfectly restored as they rolled off the showroom floor in the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
So this is a great representation of the culture that surrounds those cars, how unique they are to find in a like perfect condition, and it's kind of the super muscle is what I would call it. You have your classic Shelbys or Camaro Yankos and all that type of stuff.
GTOs,
yeah, exactly.
Thunderbirds,
Exactly.
Corvettes, stuff like that. Let's let the inner nerd come out of Brian here for a little bit because we talk about the 60s and early 70s.
And then what happened? It all just disappeared,
It did.
right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the main contributors to that was 1973, the OPEC oil embargo literally spiked gas prices, and the cost of a barrel of oil went up by 350%. So
That's insane if you think about that. Like
Right.
if that happened now. I mean, I know we've
Dude.
had our variants of that, but
that's nuts.
Jesus.
So I remember stories from our parents and stuff of like, oh, you could only get gas if your license plate ended in an odd number on certain days or an even number on other days. And it was wild, like lines at the gas pump, crazy shortages. It was nuts. So manufacturers couldn't make your thirsty, big V8, muscle cars anymore.
Right.
They had to slowly pivot and shift and become more fuel efficient, not as big in displacement, and trying to get better fuel economy for the end user and consumer who wouldn't be able to afford to fill up their car, literally.
Right.
So those muscle cars that we're talking about that are so sought after were kind of killed in the early 70s.
That's what I was going to bring up is like the muscle car culture after like, let's call it 72, 73. I mean,
Died.
it was shit. Right.
The other thing too is now you have a lot of other manufacturers that have thrown their hat in the race and make a good quality product. Back then, this was the only game in town. Like, you couldn't buy a dope Honda or a Toyota or a Hyundai or, these other cars. Like,
Right.
Beamers and Mercedes were around, but it was like super, super expensive. And that was your luxury import from Europe, So they kind of killed what they were good at. And it wasn't even them. It was the price of oil and gas.
Right.
So we saw the late 70s, the 80s, the 90s. They started making like decent power again
But
and like
even,
brought
like,
back the V8, but it was just poo. Like it was junk, I think.
It was poo.
Yeah, I was going to say it was poop because the interiors were terrible. They weren't reliable. They didn't last for very long.
Right.
And the styling just looked awful, in my opinion. Like,
Do you remember, I think it was like the early 2000s, the Mustang GT, the dash of that car, it looked
dude,
like
the interior was terrible.
it looked like it should have 2 steering wheels.
Yeah.
It really does.
With the
Like
opposite
a student
passenger
driver,
side,
you know,
yeah.
and to this day, I still in love with the 0304 Terminator Cobra. Right.
Yep.
Outside, I thought looked cool, but dude, that inside looks like, I mean, they
Yeah.
should be 2 steering wheels, 2 sets of pedals, and you have 2 people driving. Like
Yeah.
it was horrible.
Even if you look at like a C5 Corvette, like the dash, all the buttons and the way that like the digital radio, like the numbers and the font, everything just looked odd and off.
Yep.
It wasn't real refined. The wheel was big and goofy. Like, ugh.
It was a weird time. Like
Yeah.
the old, what was it? The old Camaros that looked like they took their like design inspiration from like an 8-year-old's paper airplane.
Right.
Like it was like super long and sharp and had this like pony kind of catfish look to the
Yep.
front. But like, I mean, at the time though, that's when we were growing up, you know, that was the cool thing, but that's comparative to what it used to be. It's kind of made like full circle from where we are now.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like you're absolutely right. Like that 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you know, would it be, are the Fox bodies decent? I mean, sure, but like that whole era was just brutal.
I thought it was kind of lousy. Yeah. And I don't know if they weren't allocating a lot of like research and design efforts or materials to make them look and feel and sound and perform well.
Right.
But it wasn't trickling down to an end product that you could buy off the showroom floor and really have that wow factor.
Right.
You mentioned we circle around to the later 2000s, and all of these companies or manufacturers are bringing back the classic muscle cars that made them once famous and
Sure.
like a brand loyal consumer. Like you've got your Mopar guys, you've got your Ford guys, and you got your Chevy bow tie people, right?
Yep.
And they're representing that brand for a reason. They finally figured it out and made these cars cool again, like they used to look like with the classic late 60s, early 70s design. And then they put the modern powertrain and performance into it, and it's like, boom, there's the winning ticket, you know?
Yeah.
They figured it out.
We've seen like, you know, this kind of dip, and then it's starting to go back up in the mid to late 2000s. You know, I had an '07 Mustang GT, and I thought that was, at the time, that was of the big 3. I say big 3, I'm talking Ford, I'm talking Chevy, I'm talking Dodge.
Yep.
Of that time, they were the first to kind of bring back the retro design, but
Exactly.
also modernize it to, you know, the time in 2007.
Yeah.
So that was like the coolest thing back then. You had kind of the retro interior with the gauges and,
Yep.
you know, the round vents and stuff like that, but it's modern. You know, it was kind of paying homage to what the Mustang used to look like.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the car that sparked kind of the muscle car growth going forward.
Oh, yeah. They saw sales and the popularity of that car boom. Other companies like Chevy, I mean, you could say Pontiac tried with the 2004
And fell on their face.
with the GTO.
Oh my God.
It had an LS motor. It was decent. It had an LS1 in there in 04, and I think an LS2, a 6.0 in 05
It was
and
like
06.
5.7 and then 6.0.
Yeah, but the design was like, dude, it's like a Grand Am in a coupe with a weird rear end. Like, it just
Yeah.
goofy. Same time, Dodge, I don't know where they got this from, but apparently the Dodge Charger grew 2 extra doors and is now a sedan. Like
Yeah.
that-
No, and I get
That was
the
a little
frustration
weird.
because of what the Charger used to be. It was
Yeah.
a super long nose, like
Oh,
coupe,
yeah.
right? But I understand in today's world that you have to offer a sedan. So for them to use that name, you know, they have Charger, they have Challenger, right?
Right.
So Challenger maintained the 2-door coupe.
And that remake was beautiful.
It was.
I think they did a great job.
Yeah. It's a big car, but
Yeah.
they were big back then. So I get why Dodge did that, because as much as you and I could sit here and hate it, like Yeah, I mean, having a Charger known for being a 2-door, whatever it is in the past, now you make a 4-door variant of it. I get it, but on the other hand, also it's nice because now they're appealing to buyers that may want a family sedan.
Right.
That's still a muscle car.
Right.
Versus and they offer both.
Right.
But we'll kind of jump in. Let's talk about the big three. So we have Ford, we have Chevy, and then we have Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So each of these cars have a muscle car powerhouse, and they each kind of serve a different purpose. Some would argue that the Corvette is maybe above. You have a muscle car territory, and then you have kind of jumping up, maybe not quite supercar territory, but like sports car territory.
Yeah.
I've had this argument with a lot of people, and I'm interested to see what your point of view is, because some people think that it's a muscle car, right? It's one of the three, or is it a step above your normal muscle car group? What do you think?
I think it is a muscle car, and I think they're producing a lot of different lines in there. Like you can get a base Corvette, you can get a Corvette Z06, which like ups the performance, ups all the options you're able to get. In late 2000s, they did the Corvette ZR1 remake. So I think they're trying to push the envelope with performance as much as they can to tap into that supercar type category.
Right.
And have like, oh, this is our Ferrari killer, the ZL1 or ZR1, right?
Yep.
So I still think it's a muscle car at heart.
I do too.
Just with the classic V8 rear-wheel drive manual 2-door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they did a great job with that. That has held its life the whole way through, and is one of the rare cars that do that with. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even with the new C8 coming out, that's completely just remapped that car.
Right.
That community is still going to continue to grow and get bigger.
Definitely.
So, we'll stick on the Chevy train. You have your Chevy Corvette, then you have your Camaro.
Camaro's an amazing car in the remake as well. So that's another one that they've brought back to the kind of the classic styling.
Yep.
In the late 60s, early 70s again.
I think that car took a lot of popularity when Transformers used it in their first movie.
Definitely.
It's the yellow Camaro, right? And that was kind of the retro but modern, classic but new, mix of both. So you have the Camaro, which is always going to trail behind the Corvette. We touched on this in another video.
Yeah.
That the Corvette will always be that halo car for Chevy, but then the Camaro will be not far behind it. You still can get a ZL1, you still can get all these Z28s and stuff like that, and you get crazy power, even use the same platform that's in a Z06 and a Camaro.
Yeah.
But it's cool because both of those cars are cool in their own way. The Corvette has definitely gotten more modern, while the Camaro is still kind of keeping that homage to more muscle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They jumped into of trying to do the 4-door sedan powerhouse with the Chevrolet SS, which was kind of their variant of a Pontiac G8 or whatever it is. It's just a 4-door muscle car. I think they made it for 2 years. I could be wrong. Don't kill me, but I understand the need for someone to have to do that, but it's cool just to see where Chevy has gone with these cars, especially with the new C8. That can be debated if people like it or not, but regardless, I still can. Here's the question: is the C8 outgrown of a muscle car now?
I don't think so.
See, I think it has.
Even just because it's rear engine.
I think it's rear engine. I think it's mid-engine. I think it is surpassed muscle car territory. I think it's in sport car territory. I don't think it's supercar territory.
Yeah. There's another company that has we call it like a tweener. It's like it's not a supercar, but it kind of is a supercar. And we can get into that in our next brand, the big blue oval.
Yep.
The Ford, which is first on race day. A lot of people give it shit and say it's found on road dead, but
right.
They have a great race heritage. The car we're alluding to is the Ford GT. They made a killer remake of that in 04, 05?
Yep.
In that era, supercharged 5.4 sitting behind you. It looks amazing, just like the Ford GT40 was from back in the day. And then they remade it again with like the EcoBoost platform that they're trying to have all this crazy aero and handling.
It's a cool car. That is a supercar in my mind.
That's what I was going to get at.
No question, that's a supercar.
I think that has pushed the envelope and surpassed the muscle car category and has really elevated itself into that like supercar realm.
Sure.
Or they're throwing their hat in and boxing with the best in the next level.
It should be at $500,000 too.
Right. Yeah. They also have the price tag to back it up.
Right.
So the other classics were the Ford Mustang. And I love this car, like you alluded to when we were in high school. The 03, 04 Cobra, or the classic Terminator, sounded amazing. That supercharger just squealed, had lots of power for the day. You know, that was a fast car back then, out of the box or stock.
Yep.
Another great thing they did with the Mustang is there's lots of different tiers that you can get in. You can get into Mustang GT, you can get into a Mustang Bullet, you can get into a Mustang Mach 1.
Which they just released, which
they
looks
got a new one.
Insane.
Yes, the new one, 2021, looks really cool. You can get into a Mustang Cobra. They have the Shelby editions now. I think we just talked about they don't have the GT350R anymore. It's now just a GT500.
Yeah.
And
well, they made a GT350, then they made a GT350R.
Yeah.
So 2 variants of that car, but that was kind of their track weapon.
Their driver's car.
Yeah. Yeah. And then now we just released the new GT500, which looks
awesome.
My favorite muscle car to date right now is the new GT500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that carries the Shelby name. That's a hell of a player in that space. Still classic muscle car though.
Right.
Classic muscle car.
What's cool is that Ford played on their heritage. They did the Bullet, right?
Yeah.
They made a couple colors, but I'm going to talk about the dark green, right?
Yep.
The British Racing Green's color, you know, and it's not the same color, but not regardless. You know, they did that. They did their Hertz editions. They did,
True.
you know, and Chevy did that on the Camaros as well. But you have all these little Mach 1. You have California Special. You have all these Barrett-Jackson edition. You got all these little special editions that they played back to their heritage back in the 60s and early 70s. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then you could throw in the Mopar guys. You know, we can't forget about Dodge. They bring 3 heavy hitters in. Now everything's the SRT line.
Yep.
Right? So you got your Charger, which we kind of, it's a 4-door sedan. Even if you get the big, powerful 707 horsepower or whatever. You got your Challenger, which is that classic muscle car again. Looks great like it did back in the day.
Yep.
And then the Viper, which they kind of died off, but dude, a V10 from America.
Yeah.
Dodge Viper, like, whoo.
The most dangerous car to drive.
Yeah, that's the bad mamma jamma.
It is. And Dodge has done a really good job of like showing the power level that they can achieve.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hellcat came out and that was kind of like the craze, right? And then you had the wide body variant of it. Then you have the Red Eye. Then you have the Demon. I mean, I love the way they're naming these because the car does look super mean. Like if you're looking in your rearview mirror and you see that shit behind you.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
You know, even though it is huge, it's a big ass boat.
It's heavy, but
regardless,
it's got to be heavy. Look at this motor they're putting in there. Like it's not going to be a small, nimble, light car.
But if we talk about design of that car, that is not far off from what they used to look like way back in their heyday.
Right. And I think those are the companies that are really doing a great job, and you'll see the sales reflect that, are the ones that represent their classic heritage from back in the day.
Right.
So I think those sell the best. And I also think that like the Chargers and the Chevy SS and stuff like that, just they got to throw something out there to battle like what we would say the German sleds. That's your classic sports sedan that just has cleaned house on the sports sedan market forever. Basically,
completely understand why they're doing it. I get it. You know, we're not running a massive company, an automotive company. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know, but there's definitely a reason for it because there's a market for someone that wants a sports car.
Right.
They got 2 kids. They got little Jimmy and little Sally that want to go for a ride in dad's car.
Or they want to play golf on the weekends and throw clubs in the back or bring their buddies with them. Yeah.
You know, those are by far the big 3. There are a couple little, maybe other companies that still create kind of a muscle car. I'm going to go Cadillac and kind of talk about CTSV. Woo! You know, there's a luxury power wagon, you know, wagon, sedan, coupe. They come in a couple of different variants, but that is a cool car. I mean, that's like the gentleman's muscle car from America.
Definitely. Yeah, that would be something you could roll up to a business meeting in, or like your executive would drive, right?
They make their lower tier, the ATSV, which is a cool car, but the CTSV for this purpose is kind of that like ultimate luxury car, muscle car.
Yeah. And like we're saying, they've got to battle, you know, your E-Class AMG, your M5, stuff like that. They've got to have a competitor in that space. Yeah. So I get it.
And then Pontiac, which no longer is in existence.
Yeah.
At the time, the 08, 09, that kind of era, they had the G8.
The G8 GXP
Yeah.
is their good sedan that they put up there.
That was a car that I owned. We talked about that in another video too, but that was an awesome car. But again, that is the four-door sedan, just powerhouse.
Right.
And we alluded to the GTO of being performance-wise great, but it looked like a Dodge Cavalier went to pimp my ride and had a problem.
Yeah. I think if they somehow brought the GTO back and did the proper things to it, like Ford did with the Mustang and Dodge did with the Challenger, the GT, like a Judge GTO in that orange, like, come on. We've seen that at Barrett-Jackson how many times?
Sure.
Prices are 6 figures deep, and if they remade that somehow,
yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be a killer.
What's cool to see is where these cars were and where they've ended up today.
They finally brought everything back around full circle, and we can talk about this with price as well, because that's skyrocketed.
Crazy.
But the interior is nice, the power and performance is there, and these cars hold up. It's not like they're going to crack down and break at 35, 40,000 miles. So
the refinement level. And that's just all cars. I mean, we talk about Honda Civic. It's come a long way since where it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But muscle cars are now known for having great technology.
Yep.
The refinement's there. They're reliable.
The comfort. Yeah.
The comfort, all the tech, all this stuff that you wouldn't expect in a muscle car. This was non-existent back 10 years ago when we were looking at these cars.
Right.
When I had a couple of them.
Right. And the other thing we brought up was price. Like, at least when we were in high school, a Mustang Cobra, that 03, 04, that Terminator Cobra was like 35 grand, maybe fully optioned out. You might sniff 40.
Right.
A Shelby GT500 right now is 100 grand.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of other cars across the board, like a Corvette. That was in like the low 40s or so, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, if you get a Z06 or like a top of the end, that's another like 6-figure car. Kind of been like, okay, we're gonna throw dollars at it, but you're also getting bang for your buck there too.
Right.
So yeah, they are more expensive, but you're getting a premium product in 2020 with the money that you're spending to get this type of muscle car.
And this is probably why we've seen success on the non-V8 platforms, EcoBoost motors, your 6 cylinders, and even your turbo 4 cylinders, stuff like that are in these cars. It's still, you get the car, you get the look, and you get that experience in the price point or the budget that you want to be in.
Right, exactly.
Not everyone can go afford to go just write a check for a Hellcat.
Yeah, and get the creme de la creme of each one. Yeah, like a Demon Red Eye or, your Shelby GT500 or, those things are crazy expensive, but you're getting crazy performance out of it. I mean, we've also alluded to like the Dyno Queen numbers. I mean, it's been like a horsepower battle for the last 5 years.
Yep.
I've never, ever thought that we'd see a day when manufacturers from a stock vehicle are 800 horsepower.
It's like tripled.
Yeah. So that's nuts.
Guys, give us your thoughts in the comments. What when you think of American Muscle, what is it that comes to your mind? Is it a certain brand? Is it a certain style of car? Is it a certain era of this? We're interested to know kind of what that is from y'all's perspective. But we appreciate you guys listening along. This was kind of a, maybe tailored to 4th of July. Let's talk about American muscle cars. This is what Brian and I actually grew up on. So it's kind of fun to talk about it and see where they're at now.
Yeah.
But if you guys like the content, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. And we appreciate you guys listening. And we'll catch you guys in another episode. Peace, guys.